morning, everyone, and welcome to our third webinar in the learning series entitled Technology for Professional Learning. My name's Chris Horton, and I'll be one of the moderators for today's session. We're also joined by John Tyler, and we're here to help facilitate this session. Before we begin, I just wanted to point out a few of the system logistics. To limit any audio feedback, we've muted the audience ability to send audio. We do encourage you to send your questions and thoughts through our chat box, which is located at the bottom left side of your screen. You may also engage other participants in a private chat by clicking on the arrow beside his or her name. One of our roles as facilitators today will be to gather your questions and pose them to our presenter at the end of today's session. We anticipate the presentation portion this morning to last approximately 15 minutes, followed by a question and answer period. If you think you're having technical difficulties, please ask Richard Williams or John Tyler for help. They can be reached through the chat box. You can find them as Richard Tech Support and John Tech Support up at the top. So I'd just like to introduce our presenters today. So we have Suzanne Hoffman, who's a recent superintendent of Langley, who's been seconded to the Ministry of Education in the district outreach team. And Gordon Lee, past president of BCPVPA, who's also been seconded to the Ministry of Education District Outreach Team. So over to you guys. Over to you guys.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. I am very excited to be on T4PL. Particularly, I want to recognize the vision and leadership of Woody and John and the work of the committee. Chris Horton, Norbert Casper, Ian Landy, Dan Watt, Bryn Williams, Alan Beckenworth, to make technology for professional learning a reality. Now, we speak about blended learning and equity of opportunities. I think it's very important that we walk the walk, so congratulations to all of you for your great work. And I'm also very excited to share the session with Suzanne. We have been team members for nearly 2 months, and the more I learn about her and her tremendous work in Langley, the more I recognize her visionary leadership and look forward to learning from her moving forward. I am, however, confounded by a recent hiring of an assistant superintendent in Langley, though, but that's for another day. Now, to get us started, I was hoping we can think about your recent experiences in your context with curriculum implementation. And just over the next couple of minutes or so, if you can share through the public chat box, if you can share a couple of things that have gone well and one thing that you look forward to doing. So 2 things that have gone well and 1 thing that you look forward to doing. another few minutes maybe, or not few minutes, a few seconds. It's interesting as I look at the response. There were initially, I recall, certainly thinking back to last year, some concerns about how we were going to handle this, and looking at the comments, one of the side effects certainly is the amount of collaboration and working together with your staff. So that looks like a strong positive for most people. So with that, Suze, can I pass it on to you?
You sure can. Thanks, Boris. I'll go to the next slide. I, too, would just like to say thank you for the invitation this morning, and I'd like to applaud each and every one of you on either your last Tuesday or next to last Tuesday of the school year, being online, taking part in professional development. And kudos to BCPVPA. I love this way of doing Pro-D, and I'll be really curious to hear the impact that it's had for the association and administrators throughout the province going forward. So the conversation about instructional leadership, which was the topic that Gordon and I put forward, obviously folks in the schools are the educational leaders. We're the change agents that are actually going to propel the new curriculum forward as we go into the September and then into the subsequent years of the 10 to 12 implementation. I applaud and appreciate all of the work that our principals and vice principals throughout the province have already undertaken to make the change happen. And I'm looking forward in the new role to supporting you in your roles as you go forward with the further work that needs to be undertaken. So here's just a few personal thoughts on the why. And these are my ideas of thinking. And hopefully as I go through them, you can think about yourself in your own context, be it a school, be it a district position that perhaps some of you have, as to why you think the change is imperative. And we know from Simon that we should always start with the why. But I do believe it's about providing life chances for young people. And my example that I used there, and Dawn, who's online from Langley, knows this one well, is about when I think of our refugees, our Karen refugees, and the first one that crossed the stage to receive a dogwood, and how we have changed the life trajectory for that young lady. We really are about life chances for young people. And again, I encourage you to think of the kids in your school that you are trying to make a difference in their lives going forward, and to keep that at the forefront of your own thinking, and to encourage and challenge your staff to have that same priority. Positive differences in the lives of children. And again, one time or one summer challenged our principals in our schools to identify who are the most vulnerable kids in their schools, and to have an adult be connected to those young people who are at risk of either not completing or are disengaged or are struggling on a social, emotional, personal, or academic level. And listening to a principal tell me a really emotional story at the end of a year of a custodian who had taken up that challenge, and who at the end of June was incredibly distraught about the fact that through the summer months, who was going to be the positive, caring adult in that child's life. And again, if you can champion that cause about looking after the kids that really need that kind of care and support, that's of paramount importance. Lighting fires with passion in students and staff, I think, is our job, and as tired and as challenging as that can be at times, we have to keep that at the forefront of our work. And I think of my own son, who's one day came home absolutely joyous with the fact that the social studies and PE teacher were going to go paintballing for PE. And, you know, the educator and all of us was kind of like, oh, this is good. How is that connected? And it was the recreation of World War II and World War I battles, the major battles in those two wars, at the paintball site. And when my son came in the door that day, absolutely ecstatic about the fact he died multiple times at the paintball range. And to this day, he can still tell me what some of those major battles are. But how do we as the building leaders put structures in place that enable passion for our teachers, for our staff, and also for our students? And I do see that as our primary role in work. I've already alluded to this, but meeting the needs of all learners is huge. And again, not only those that are at risk, but the most vulnerable, but for those that are disengaged but still successful in our system, or the gifted children in our school. And we need to be thoughtful and mindful of that. and then making sure that we create structures in our roles as school leaders to create those deep, powerful learning opportunities. And I'm hopeful that over the summer you can find some time just to reflect about your own site and your own place. And what are your personal thoughts on why? And I would encourage you to share this with your staff at your summer admin meeting. There's lots of researchers that talk about why this needs to happen. John Hattie is of paramount importance, and we've done a lot of work with his research in the Langley School District. Yang Zhao and his bombastic approach to just poking the bear around why the change needs to happen. And then, of course, Andreas Schleicher, who is often contrary to Yang Zhao, or they don't often agree, but still taking his perspective and the research he has. And Robinson around creativity and that, and how do we sustain what the youngsters feel in kindergarten all the way through their educational journey. Bill and Willem's work, I think the work around assessment, as we start to implement that K-9 curriculum, will become of paramount importance going forward. But if you think, if you look at that particular tweet, you know, it's one size does not fit all, and it will never fit all. So again, in your schools and your places, how do you create structures that are going to meet the needs of all? And then, of course, Judy and Linda were all well-versed in, but I think she speaks in this tweet to the celebratory piece of the work that we often don't undertake, and we should. There's great reason to be very proud of everything we do. Okay, trying to make this a little bit interactive. Take a look at those boats. So in the context of instructional leadership, which one of those boats most represents the year you've just had? Have you had a nice canoe ride with a buddy? Are you on a cruise ship, a fishing boat, a rowboat that's kind of by itself, a speedboat, a sailboat, or a tugboat? Okay. I keep flipping my cursor and not my arrow up top. Okay, so here's what I'd like you to try. Always a game to try something different. I'd like you to, if you've got your phone, you need to text in the name line, that number, 37607. And then in the message, and it's a lowercase f, I'm not sure if it's case sensitive, it doesn't matter, but Suzanne Hoffman, 966. And you need to leave a space. And then you need to put A through G, depending on how you feel your year has been in the context of this. Good morning, Carmen. I see you've just joined. So there you go. Send a text to and your choices. I'm going to go to the next slide. Hopefully, give me enough time to complete that task. And there's no Titanic option. Thanks, Kevin. I did actually think of that, but I thought that was a little bit. So there we go. So, John, I'm hoping now that people can start to see the results on their screen. And if not, please click on the link there, and it'll take you to a new screen. And as you can see the results coming in, we've got 30% are the canoe, fishing boat is 20, the rowboat is 20, nobody's on a sailboat. The rowboat is now taking over, and the canoe. So I'm hoping that you can see those live. And maybe if somebody could just in the message box tell me if you're able to see what it is you're doing. Somebody just in public chat say, yes, we can see the link. Okay, good. That's good. So good. All right, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. What I just did on that example is what I tried to do, and I tried to encourage in our own meetings, and I give this message to you as school building leaders or departmental leaders, is to model the kind of instruction that we're asking our teachers to do in classrooms. So it's a little bit of a risk. You're never quite sure if it's going to work. But from that, and if we had more time, we could really delve into why so many people chose a different thing. You know, there's no speedboats, or there were very few speedboats the last time I looked. And why are some people thinking it's been like a tugboat? But there's lots of opportunity, and it also gives us a bit of a finger on the pulse as to how people are feeling about the curriculum implementation to date. So modeling it, encouraging to applaud any efforts you can do to do the same kind of things with your staff, and it's something that we try to do as a district ourselves, not just doing the total stand and deliver each and every time we talk. Okay, I went back and took a look at Tammy's session from last time. I listened to you, Tammy, great job. And Kevin and Chris, I saw the content of what they had talked about. And what I really appreciate was there's lots of synergy and energy and consistency of thinking around what it is that Gord and I could have shared with you this morning. So I thought I would share a slightly different angle with you this morning around the change and change in leadership. First of all, culture is huge. We spent a lot of time in Langley talking about culture and connecting the culture in schools to the performance of children, and there is a correlation between that. So how do you, as a leader, purposefully go about creating culture in the school? And it's not just when you start to look into the research about, the goodies at staff meetings and championing and cheerleading. There's a lot more deeper work. I encourage you over the summer to look into the culture. Thoughtful about that as you enter into the next school year. So rather than sharing a lot of the educational researchers, which has already been done and very much is aligned thinking with what I believe, I found a really interesting blog about change and leadership and culture, and that was from Bob Iger, and it cited the source where I found it on medium.com. He's the CEO of Disney, and so it's a business perspective, but it very much aligns with the thinking that we have in many of the educational models. And he has those 5 things that you can see on the screen in front of you as priorities for Walt Disney, and he's been there for a long time. So when I look at the first one, which is my question, or I ask each of you, what's your school's vision or your district's vision? Can you articulate it? And if not from my perspective and from the CEO of Disney's perspective, that's problematic. Disney's vision is a business billions of dollars doing that. But can you say what your teacher or staff echo back what you're saying? And if not, what are you going to do then? Because if you don't have that clear articulated vision, you're going to struggle to move your system or your system. They talk about making long-term bets. Again, it's a business perspective, but I think there's things that we can take away from this. Apparently, Disneyland Shanghai has taken 17 years to finally get to almost be a reality. So the dedication, the commitment, the tenacity, the persistence, key words that we need to be thoughtful about as we go around, looking ahead at what we need to do in this department. And Amazon in this blog is cited as being absolutely stubborn on digital, incredibly flexible on digital. So again, what are your long-term goals? And if we could have a private chat about that, could you articulate what they are? And if not, I would encourage you to do so. In this blog, they talk about setting ambitious, risky goals. And courage is one of our own district's core values. And courage, to me, gives us license and latitude to take the risk, thoughtful, who shall be harmed, but moving agendas forward. And in this blog, talks about thinking transformationally and how it's so important transformationally to actually get change to happen. The 10 Times Rule is a business book. I haven't read it, but they talk about thinking big. And it's a book by Grant Cardone, and it just talks about massive action and blasting through cliches and having risk aversion. Curious and optimistic, as school leaders, we have to ask questions. We have to really wonder why things are happening the way that they are happening. And then we've got to be resilient. And I know we've talked a lot about that in our own district. How do we continue to build resilience in our school administrators? Finding work to be done. And similarly, for our teachers, words and thought as we do this. And then striving for excellence, not accept mediocrity. And I think it's really hard some days with the kind of work that we have to undertake in our district and in our schools to get away from that. We need to demand excellence. And if we don't do that, that's problematic. And I think it's challenging many times, but I'm hopeful and optimistic that we need to absolutely demand excellence for all of the children. And then the rest of those are just some of the reminders of the things of Disney thing is absolutely. And then Gord, I kind of rattled through, and I think I took a little longer than I was supposed to. So thank you for your time, everyone, and I'm going to pass it back over to Gord.
Thank you, Suze. We often talk about technology and access to information as a game changer in the way we learn and teach. And many students come to us with much of what we've taught at their fingertips. And we describe a curriculum transformation as one moving from knowing to knowing, understanding, and doing, from passive to active learning, and from collecting the dots to connecting the dots, as portrayed in this tweet from High Tech High that Suzanne shared with me. When it comes to technology, I believe that we need to use the same frame to think about what is it that we're trying to do. With core competencies as the underpinning, how does applied design, skills, and technology assist our students to become educated citizens in a modern society? And the use of technology help our students to know, understand, and do. So in this way of thinking, we need to teach our students a whole lot more than just coding. It would be like limiting our math teachers to only teach computation. Recently, I attended the BC Techquity Symposium in Nanaimo, where Remy Holden from the University of Colorado asked the critical question: how do we lead change by leveraging technology and social assets in service of equitable learning for students in British Columbia? And he broke it down to access. And access in not only in using the technology, but access in using the technology in a way of knowing, in ways of being. And he talked about participation, not just being involved, but connected and networked with others through technology. And I think the critical piece for me, he talked about agency. And agency is about empowerment, to use technology to change their reality. And he used a great example of students from the Bronx in this particular depressed area where it was very hard to get healthy food, fresh fruits and vegetables and so on. So the students created a phone app, and they went around and surveyed the community and tracked the stores that were selling fresh fruits and vegetables at reasonable price. And this app not only told people where they can buy reasonably healthy food at a reasonable cost, it also gave a message or presented a picture of the community and gave a message to store owners that this is important to the community and people were voting with their feet. And so through this use of technology, those students helped the community get to a place where they can get better access to fresh fruits and vegetables, healthier food for the community. And just recently in North Van, you heard of a group of grade 6 students when, in response to North Shore Rescue, saying the number one reason hikers get lost or injured is simply they get caught in the dark. They created an app that tells hikers if they have enough time to finish the excursion before darkness fell. And those are just a couple of examples where technology is used to change their own reality, to create agency. And we thought a great deal about the intersection of technology and culture being, what is it that we do? And a lot of the conversation had a very, very strong connection to the development of competencies. As a user of technology, as coders, for example, how do we help our students to develop empathy, to think outside of ourselves? And a lot of times when we're debugging a code, it isn't what's going on in your head. It's to live through your code. And collaboration. When you look into companies that are working in the technology or coding sector, we get this stereotype of people working in cubicles, and that's just not true. We got lots of coders working in where they are in the stations, but there's a lot of cross-pollination. People are moving around. These are people that are working in sort of open offices. How do we help our students create persistence? when you're trying to debug a code, we tend not to get it the first shot, and we have to go back at it. Where in a curriculum do our students have a chance to say, your first shot, and it's not going to work, and it's perfectly all right, because that's the nature of coding. You need to go back, and you need to do it again and again until you get mastery. And, of course, critical thinking and creativity in terms of what's another way to solve a problem. And so when we think about technology and coding, which is the recent, the new buzzword, I certainly hope that, it fits in as part of the bigger picture of what is it we're trying to do with this curriculum and what is it that we're trying to do in terms of developing educated citizens. And moving forward, and I share this slide, and I think Suzanne do as well, and as we are moving into another implementation year for our grade level, I think what we need to do very clearly is to work collaboratively with you to get it right. We need your leadership. We need your help. And both Suzanne and I look forward to very much to working with the school leaders throughout the province and working with you to make this better and better. So with that, any final words, Suze, before we go to questions?
Sorry, I muted myself. No, that was perfect. Thank you.
So that kind of takes us to the end of our presentation, and we can certainly spend a little time staying on to answer any questions that you might have.
So thanks, Gordon and Sue. If you have any questions, if you could just type them down in the chat box, and we'll put them out and give Gordon and Sue a chance to respond. So there's a question from John. Are you hearing any common concerns or challenges around the redesign?
I can certainly take a first one at it. I think for the most part, K-9 around the implementation, although it's an overwhelming, daunting thought for some of the schools or some of the staff, people are ready to go forward and begin to start implementation. I think there's a little bit of uncertainty not having any specificity or knowing about the reporting order for K-9. And I know Ministry is working on that and trying to get it out to schools. I think people should count on flexibility around that order going forward. If schools or districts are not ready to move forward, so be it. They'll have a chance just to keep doing what's been happening. But for those people or individuals that are ready to move forward around the reporting and do something different, that flexibility will be enabled through what should be coming forward, hopefully sooner than later. But that's the one thing, K-9. And then 10 to 12, the new curriculums will be posted over the summer, and I think that some may be up soon with the feedback that's been given already, so that admin should continue to watch that site, and we'll do our best to communicate what those new curriculums are as they get posted in the 10 to 12 world.
I would concur with that, and I think also with the districts that I visited, some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller, and with moving, a large group of people, you're certainly going to have a range of response. And I think, one of the challenges that I've heard from leaders is that, we need to look at ways of supporting the entire range of learners and people we work with. I think there's, we can expect that there'll be a range of response and different emotionally and so forth, and the needs that will come out of that. And there's never as simple as, a one-size-fits-all. As with, teaching and learning with students.
I think to answer John's question about the positive, I think there's an excitement and energy, a hope and an optimism around making a difference for kids. I think the positive is that there's an appreciation of the space that the curriculum has created, enabling teachers to go deeper, to go into their areas of passion, areas of expertise or interest. And I think there's a great appreciation for the structure of the new curriculum and what it will hopefully enable teachers to do in their classrooms. You're welcome, John.
There's another question there from Kevin. You guys want to read that?
Sure, Gordy, okay if I jump in? So my advice, Kevin, to all of the principals and vice principals would be to have some downtime for themselves and their family and their friends this summer, because I think the years ahead are going to be incredibly taxing on our school level leadership. So I really hope that everyone is able to find time to recharge and rejuvenate. I think going forward for the upcoming school year, for me, it's about having a vision and having a strong culture. And if you have a vision in your school that you can hang on to, that you have core values that will help get you to where we need to go with this curriculum, that will serve you well. And I think we have to be mindful and thoughtful about creating a culture where risk, trying new things, open opportunity are encouraged. So really building school culture and having a strong vision. And I think the curriculum will then fall into place. I mean, not that easily, but vision and culture would be my first thoughts on that. Gord?
I think that's a great sentiment to lead the year. I think as we get in the time where, there are lots of details that we are dealing with, it's always refreshing to step back and look at the bigger picture. And so, focus on culture and reasons why we do these things is, for me, a great way to go.
Are there any other last questions for Gordon and Suze? Okay, on that note, thank you again to Suzanne and Gord. Thank you for sharing with us how to become instructional leaders and the impact that we can make on student lives through igniting passions, modeling what we expect, being stubborn on vision, setting risky goals, and being curious. Thank you guys for taking the time out of your busy days and your busy schedules to work with us. And just a quick reminder to everyone that the next session will be next Tuesday with Cale Burke on creating cultures of creativity and inquiry. Look in your email for an email from Tim Maxwell about registering for that session. Have a great last week, everybody, and that's it. Thank you.